Hi everyone, and welcome to the first ever in-person Bristol 24/7 Presents event celebrating women in the nighttime economy. Thank you everyone who's turned out to Lost Horizon on what's turned into a snowy day and weirdly cold for almost April. And thanks to everyone watching online on the live stream as well. It's amazing to have you all here, so thank you for coming. So this event came about as a partnership between Bristol 24/7 and Bristol Nights, an organisation that was set up to support the businesses and people who operate between 6 p.m. and 6 p.m. to basically make up Bristol's nightlife. So the aim of tonight is to celebrate the women and non-binary people who are doing incredible things in Bristol's nightlife scene, but also to discuss some of the issues that need to be addressed to make it a place that is safe, inclusive, and welcoming for everybody. So I won't be talking for too long. We've got 5 amazing panelists here. One thing I do need to say is we were meant to have Carly Heath here tonight, Bristol's Nighttime Economy Advisor. She was unable to make it, unfortunately, due to COVID. So I have got a statement that Carly has sent over. What I will do is read that out now. Try to remember to keep the mic in the right place, and then I'll introduce all of our panelists, and we'll go from there. Crack on with the discussion. Going to go till around 8 o'clock. We're really open to questions. Please feel free to answer or ask. Get involved in the discussion. Be awesome to hear from everyone. So this is from Carly. Carly says, I want to thank the Bristol 24/7 team for their tireless work promoting culture in this city. It's been a long-term goal of mine to partner on an event with them, so I'm really sad to not be able to attend in person today. Bristol Nights has been working hard to redress the perception of safety for women in nightlife, particularly through our most recent work towards a zero tolerance of sexual harassment in our licensed premises. As part of this body of work, we have launched a Women's Safety Charter, a centrepiece of how we collectively approach issues surrounding women's safety at night in our city. The city doesn't stop at 6 o'clock, it comes alive. It's the heart and soul of our city. It's where communities come together and where we meet our friends and family. Bristol Nights have been working in the background, supporting the sector to drive forward a unified approach to safety in nightlife. Whether this is through the Bristol Rules campaign back in September, through our drink spiking initiative, which now has 154 venues in the city with drinks testing kits to help with the early evidence gathering needed to increase prosecutions, or more recently with our anti-sexual harassment training for nightlife workers and launch of the Women's Safety Charter. Nightlife workers or visitors to the nighttime economy deserve to have a safe working environment. We deserve the same offers of protection as those who work in the day. The Women's Safety Charter recognises the need for safety to be highlighted within businesses and elevates the safety needs of women within the company values across our city. Something extra happens when we focus on safety of women in this space. Although we mention women a lot in our most recent campaign, please take it for granted that this work to create safer spaces applies to everyone. We shift focus to all vulnerable groups, particularly non-binary, people of colour, those with different physical and mental differences, and all sexualities. By establishing a zero tolerance to harassment across the city, we aim to look out for all communities and create a network of allies that represent the heart of what it means to be a Bristolian. As a nightlife sector, we are the vibe creators. We set the tone, and for a city like Bristol, powerful women are embedded into the very heart and soul of our After Dark community. I'm very sad not to be with you guys and the powerhouse of nightlife champions on the panel tonight. The work these women do across the whole spectrum of creating joyful moments after dark is truly inspiring. We're exceptionally lucky to have them. So thanks to Carly. And from there, I will introduce all of the panelists that we've got here tonight. So starting directly to my left, Laura Lewis-Paul. Laura is the founder and creative director of Saffron, a music initiative that is working to redress the gender imbalance in the music tech industry. Next to Laura, we have Ola Poroslo. Ola is the founder and director of PHAT Bristol, a collective and record label that was launched during lockdown, wasn't it? And is really just working towards creating positive change through music and arts. Ola's also setting up a new security company with a focus on queer and femme employees, and there's a fundraiser for that straight after this tonight, and runs Crotch Bristol, as we're having on tonight. In the middle, we have Linda Devo. So Linda is the co-founder of Kiki Bristol, a volunteer-run collective that works to create safe social spaces and events for queer, trans, and intersex people of colour in Bristol. Linda also is a member of Bristol Pride's Film Festival, Queer Vision. Queer Vision? Mm-hmm. That's right. I always knew I was going to get that one. And also a member of Booty Based DJ Collective. In the yellow hoodie, we have Emma. Emma Harvey is the CEO of Trinity Community Arts. So that's a charity that runs Trinity Community and independent music venue just up the road in Old Market, doing amazing things. And Aysha Tailor-Whyte, also at Trinity, but Aysha runs the training programs that are being offered to 1,000 people in Bristol's nighttime economy at the moment, and that's focusing on anti-sexual harassment training. So lots to discuss there. So if I kick things off, I think there's quite often a perception that Bristol's nighttime economy is perhaps dominated by men, but Bristol is in many ways bucking the trend. A huge number of the biggest, most prominent, most successful venues are run by women. Obviously, women and non-binary people are at the heart of everything that goes on in the city. Are we doing enough to champion these people and their work? And Laura, maybe if I come to you first.
I think actually I was speaking to Emma about this just before the panel, and I think, you know, there are a lot of, you know, male-dominated spaces, male-dominated, I guess, organisations, promoters. So I think there's a lot of support to actually get women, non-binary and trans people into those positions. And I think, yeah, what me and Emma were saying was actually it's about the city council being able to invest in, oops, my nose ring just fell out straight away. It's a fake. So it's about the council actually being able to invest in those organisations that are supporting those people into those spaces, because you know, it takes a lot for people to be able to test and explore and to, you know, change those audiences, change the people of who they're working with. So, yeah, I think it needs to come from more of a financial investment as well as a support and investment.
Which I suppose is sort of, is slowly coming through Bristol Nights, which I think is at least partially funded by the council. Emma, you run Trinity, obviously one of the biggest venues, or at least the most prominent venues in the city. What's your experience, and do you feel that there needs to be more investment at that kind of citywide level?
I guess, well, I mean, my experience of Bristol is like largely a positive one, which is why I chose to come to live in Bristol and call it my home. You know, before that, I was living in a town called Harlow, and let me tell you, the nightlife after there was one music venue called The Square, where literally anything that was vaguely alternative happened, and anyone who was vaguely different went there. And after that closed, there was basically the venue that had been renamed a million times, you know, from like Millennium to Liquid to whatever, and like Yates's wine bar, and I think that was about it, really. So I think, you know, coming to Bristol, I was like, what? And then working in Trinity, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, and it's just like, there's just amazing, there's just an amazing richness to the city, you know, the diversity of the people that live here and the stuff that people create in this city. And I think just echoing what Laura was saying is just that, to get a night up and running, it actually takes a huge amount of work, a huge amount of effort, and as Linda will know, like all this volunteering energy that you have to put into a night to build it up from a really small core audience to something that could be something that happens at Trinity in a 600 capacity venue. Even though we're a grassroots music venue, we're not the space to incubate these really small nights, and it's that journey that needs that support and investment, and that's where nights that are run by women, nights that run by and for trans and queer community are really, really important to invest in if we want to, develop and reach audiences, with the things that people want to see.
Linda, how have you found that? Because obviously you've been involved in this space for a while and run a volunteer-led collective. Is that space there? I mean, would you agree that there needs to be more support?
I moved to Bristol 10 years ago from London, which had, well, everyone knows there's so much going on. I had option paralysis and never knew what to do with myself. I lived in West London. No one had ever come to there. There was nothing queer happening there at all. Everyone would go to Central. So I started a night there. And I guess when I came here and discovered that there was a lack of space for black people and queer, LGBTQ community was seriously lacking. Kiki was started up out of that along with some fellows, and I think what I got from Bristol is how open it is to DIY space and DIY culture. There's a lot of that here, and there's obviously a lot of nightlife and a lot of there's a tradition of people setting up their own thing for many, many years. So I think there's definitely room for improvement, but in the 10 years I've been here, I've seen enormous leaps in terms of how many nights, how many events there are going that are all DIY, all started up with, on the shoestring with lots of goodwill. And so, yes, definitely, I think the city is open and for that kind of spirit and culture, but then there now needs to be some more concerted effort to actually think about how to support, and it's always down to finance. Venues have historically been a massive issue because obviously they're capitalism, people want to make money off their buildings, but buildings aren't in use all the time. So I'm really interested in seeing things like, like school buildings are dead. They're doing nothing at night. Why are those sort of spaces not being used for community? Like the Tory government came and sort of stripped out a whole layer of community and youth services. And so the people have stepped up and done the community spirit thing of creating spaces, but we need for that balance to be redressed now.
It's a really good point about using the spaces that aren't being used after dark and making the most of them, and potentially that could be the kind of free or incredibly cheap space that people need to just get things off the ground.
Can I just say, people aren't always, it's not always about partying either, it's about community. So Kiki came out of, people love to dance and like music, but that's not why we came together. It's primarily so we could have community. And so it's not always about having a rave, necessarily.
Really good point. Ola, if I can come to you, because you obviously came to this space relatively recently and set up something in the middle of lockdown, which must have been an experience. How have you found that? And do you feel like we're doing enough to champion women, non-binary, trans, and the kind of the groups and spaces that are needed to support that sort of grassroots movement?
I think everyone's kind of touched on funding, and I think it would be amazing if there was more funding and there was more money put into what we're doing. I think starting in lockdown, and actually what you're saying about champion, like having a place in Bristol, it was like the best. I dropped out of uni and started a record label, and now I'm doing this. So it was like the best decision ever for me. And I'm from Poland as well, and my family in Poland don't know I'm queer. They don't know I do this. They're mad at me that I dropped out. So Bristol definitely, like, I can't undersell how much Bristol actually has. It's such a platform just for acceptance. There's so much acceptance and solidarity and tolerance towards anyone who looks a bit different from you or is different from you. But at the same time, I think it's still such early days. It's amazing to see so many queer collectives that have come about during actually before lockdown. It was not like this, and now there's so many people coming out and doing different nights. But I think I do have to mention, I think a part where more support definitely could be given is to the sex workers and sex worker collectives in Bristol, especially Urban Tiger and the Chambers as well, and the nil cap policy that they're trying to introduce. If we're saying about supporting women in the workplace and excluding the women in the workplace just because of the type of job they do. There's so much prejudice and so much wrong with that, and I really hope that the signing of the thing that everyone was signing for to support the sex workers comes through, and if not, we'll definitely carry on that battle. Because a lot of the people in there, you know, it's women, it's queer people, it's trans people doing those jobs, and you know, you wouldn't all of a sudden close schools because the teachers, there was something up for the teachers, you know, you'd carry on and try and improve it, and I think the same should be done in that respect for sure. I think there was a stat that it was Prism, the club Prism, there's 5 times more sexual assault in that venue than Urban Tiger and the Chambers combined. So a lot of these arguments for closing these clubs I feel are extremely invalid and backwards. And I know there's similar things are happening in London as well with closing sex clubs, and Crossbreed have been having problems. But I think because of the uprise in sex-positive parties in Bristol that are often quite queer as well, there seems to be more support, and it's something that I think people should either do a bit more research into, or if you know about it already, keep sharing it and keep supporting that movement. Because it's everyone you should have, you know, equality at work no matter what the nature of the job is. So, yeah.
Well said. Plenty of support for that, because yeah, there's been the consultation on the nil cap that's being proposed against the 2 venues in Bristol. As I understand it, this is now going to be going to licensing committee, and it will be then a decision made by councillors at that committee. Do you want to keep on this subject and just perhaps talk a bit about why you would keep it, not have the nil cap?
I mean, I think with sex work, I actually spoke to the Sex Workers Collective this week just to try and see some of their opinions on it. And there is obviously problems in their workplace as well, and a lot of the times the workers there are mistreated by venues and managers, not the people that come there. A lot of the times there is respect within that, and I think taking that away from people and taking away that job will mean that they'll end up having to still carry on the same job, but they'll have to do it illegally, they'll have to do it in pretty gross places, and a lot of the times those people are then dealt with by police, which the sex workers a lot of the times don't trust anyway. So I think to prevent a whole situation from escalating quite badly, I think showing some support at this stage and making sure that those people feel supported at work is the best thing we can do to actually make sure that their work is safe for them. Yeah.
Thanks.
Can I say something? Because I think with the nighttime economy, I think there's a lot about the unregulation of it all. So with sex work, with that becoming unregulated, then that creates a place which is not safe for the people that are working within that. And I feel like a sort of element of the nighttime economy, the nighttime industry, it's a similar place, because there's, you know, everyone's drunk. It's a very informal workspace, isn't it? Where people are drinking, there's drug taking, and actually there's not like a formal HR route that you can contact and speak to your HR manager, or so I think that there's a certain amount of regulation that needs to come into this space to basically support all workers within the nighttime industry.
Such a good point about people are being paid to work, but the kind of rules and regulations you might expect in an office space in the 9 to 5 are not necessarily traditionally in place. Aysha, is this something you can maybe talk a bit more about? Because you are actually working to train people in the nighttime economy, and I guess that must be kind of feeding into building in more regulations, or perhaps.
Like a big part of the training is about things that businesses, organisations who are like open, operate between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. can put in place to make the spaces safer, not just for the people attending events, but the people who are working on them, whether that's, you know, like in-house staff or contractors, whoever it may be, artists, performers, anyone. Things we can do, like updating, like making sure your risk assessments include things like sexual harassment, and making sure that you're acknowledging that kind of at every stage when you're planning these events or whatever's happening in these spaces, and making sure that your policies kind of reflect what you're wanting to do. So you've got these policies in place, the procedures that go along with it, and training your staff to to act on them as well. It's like it's more than a piece of paper. It's like a policy. It's something that you've got to live it in order to actually make change and create that kind of cultural change within your space, and then hopefully through this training that's kind of citywide, make that change within the city. So you're kind of creating a safer city, not just like safer individual spaces for people.
Thanks, Aysha. I'm going to check at this point that everyone can hear okay. All good with the mics. Amazing. I'm going to follow on from that point then and just ask, do you feel that people who run venues in general, the people that are involved in the training, involved in the nighttime economy, are genuinely open to kind of reflecting, to seeing how they could do better? Or is there any resistance there?
I think there's a general openness. I think from the sessions that I was running, everyone was like so engaged in it and really wanting, one of the first things that's asked in the sessions is, like, why are you here? Like, what do you want to gain from this training? And like the general response is like, we want to know how we can intervene, and like how we, like, when we see something, and then also how do we make our spaces safer? So it's like I think the way it's been rolled out as a citywide sign up to this, rather than individual spaces having to be like, oh, we might need some anti-sexual harassment training. Kind of creates that, I guess, environment where you're not having to pinpoint like, oh, we think we've got an issue. It's just the city, as a city, everywhere, not just Bristol, there's a problem. And so rolling it out citywide and getting all these people, all these different organisations, it's not just venues, it's promoters, it's security companies, signing up to it and kind of fully engaging in it. Like, it's really, I don't know, like it's really interesting to see the level of engagement and everyone wanting to improve and see what they can do to kind of build on what they're currently doing and kind of, create this citywide standard, I suppose.
Ola, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on this as well, because obviously it was your experiences with security on Nights Out that led you to set up your own, or go in the process of setting up your own security firm. Do you feel that this, I mean, obviously this is needed, but I mean, what could be done better by existing companies?
I think especially if you look after 6 o'clock, so a lot of the times we're talking about venues mostly. I've worked in hospitality since I was 15, and it's busy, it gets busy. And I think it's amazing that the staff at venues are taught how to handle situations, and the training was really, really good. I would encourage everyone who works in any economy to do the training, no matter, just to know how to actually intervene in situations. But I think that there's definitely a gap to fill in, kind of like provide that safety like externally, which is why like with PHAT we're introducing like a guardian system, which means that at all of the nights, of course it's the responsibility of people working during that shift, but there's people that are especially dedicated to walking around the venue, not as security. It's kind of like the gap, bridging the gap between security and people, for people to go to not be embarrassed about what drugs you've taken, to not be embarrassed about how much you've drunk, to actually have someone to go and talk to, I don't know, hug, cry to, find your friends with, like actually just, I don't know, just have that kind of balance in there. And I think we're going to have some like sensory toys and boxes as well for people that get overwhelmed at nights that might need some time out. It's kind of encouraging, bridging that gap so people feel more safe and have people to go to, because I don't think that security are trustworthy at all. Bringing in faces that you can relate to, first of all, that don't seem threatening, that you trust, I think is the way to kind of make nightlife safer and kind of take the pressure of the people that are working in the venues. I think, like I said, it's amazing to be trained up, but it's, you're there to work on the bar. If you're there to work on the bar, it's good to know how to solve stuff, but there should be a team of people to go to when something does go wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the will is probably there to do the right thing, but you can't necessarily do everything if you're there to serve drinks and something's happening right across the floor. I think it's really interesting that I think you've both made the point that it's not always just about kind of the big nights out either. It's actually about like creating spaces where it doesn't necessarily have to be all about drink or about like going out loads, and it's just creating kind of community social spaces. I guess we've talked quite a bit about, well, we've touched on some of the issues, but I'd be interested to go into a bit more detail about what some of the key issues that need to be addressed are, and I guess really particularly in mainstream venues, because a lot of the kind of spaces at the moment that feel safe and inclusive are deliberately curated that way. So, I mean, if I start again, Laura, and go ask everybody,
Sure you don't
but
want to go to Emma first? 'Cause
in that case, we'll reverse. Emma.
Well, I guess the first point to say about venues, and like, you know, from my experience as someone who runs, broadly speaking, a venue that I think has got a good reputation, there is no perfect venue. And venues, like there's, you know, you can have a bad experience and sexual assault can happen in any venue, and an incident can arise in any venue. So I think it's, you know, what I don't want to do is be like, oh, Trinity's great and Prism's shit and, you know, la la la, because that is not very, and that maybe that's true, but you know, objectively speaking, but you know, having said that, you know, it's about there's this thing about a mentality around black box thinking. It's like a aviation term where they say, it's about learning from mistakes, right? And it's about saying what's gone wrong and how can we do it better. And I think, you know, that's where venues need to be getting into that space, is saying, how have our nights gone? What's gone wrong? And how can we make this space better? Because the more that you sort of push venues into this space where they are like on the defensive, a bit like what Aysha was sort of hinting at, they're never going to change. It's never going to like improve, because they're going to be so protective of their venue and their brand and their you know, ability to make money, that anything that goes wrong, they're going to just want to mask, and then that just allows the type of behaviour that Ola's talking about to just carry on bubbling away under the surface, because no one's going to challenge it and no one's going to do anything about it. So in order to kind of like, you know, I think that's why this training getting rolled out across the city collectively is a really good first step to say, as a city, what we're saying is, this is the sort of city that we want to create, and these are the sorts of behaviours that we expect of people when they're interacting with people in the nighttime economy. And then that creates a really good foundation for which to build on. And then when things go wrong, we need to be calling those things out, but calling those things out in a really constructive way. So rather than just, you know, let's drag this venue on social media until like somebody, you know, we get blood from this, you know, somebody. We've got to say, look, how do we, if we want this space to be a space that's better, how do we get there? How do we move that space into that space? You know, some of the guys that work at Trinity, they'll come and they'll do security for our Karen in Bristol event all the way through Christmas. They're there on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, you know, Boxing Day. You know, and so these are great people that are writing little I love you messages on our walls, you know, when we come in on Monday, and you're like, oh my God, this is brilliant, you know. And so, you know, there are some really good security people out there. But then the issue is sometimes is availability. It's like, you know, you get sort of busy nights, you'll get what is called like jacket fillers. So you might have 3 people on your doors that are there all the time, and then the team, you know, the head of security has to find someone. So they'll get you someone who's, you know, really new, and so how do you get that consistency? So I think there is something as well around the SIA basic training that, you know, the basic level that security teams get to. It's like a kind of 2-day course, and you get your badge and you're off, and you could be doing doors, you know, you could just be on the door in Tesco's, and then you could be suddenly in a venue at Mr. Wolf's, and you'll just emulate that behaviour that you see of the people around you. And if the people around you are really aggressive and chucking people out, you're just going to pick up that habit. So I think there's in part something around the SIA system as a whole that needs to introduce this idea of what does good behaviour of the team look like, and what does, you know, what's expected of them.
Can I well, the SIA thing, I think, is something that's actually a really interesting concept to go with. And I think when you were speaking earlier, Ola, it's maybe a bit of a wild idea, but I was thinking that there might be an opportunity for like youth workers and therapists to come into this nighttime economy, and you know, for there to be this kind of cross-pollination of youth workers, therapists being able to work in that economy, but then also for them to be able to train you know, the security staff, because if they're not getting like, I don't know what their training sort of consists of, but I feel like there needs to be a lot more around, safety, emotional welfare of, rather than it coming from a place, not all security, but from that kind of aggressive, door person that, is the traditional door person that you would think of. But yeah, whether there are other types of people that could start coming into this industry.
I mean, I guess some of that, again, comes down to investment and being able to pay people for their time and investing in that kind of level of training and people who are willing to kind of go that bit beyond and see it more than just kind of standing on the door. Also, I'm very aware that this is a really key issue, kind of how we tackle sexual harassment, how we make people feel safe. But there are a number of issues, I guess, that also need to be tackled, whether that's accessibility, transport to make people, ensure people can get to and from like places safely. Linda, perhaps, do you want to sort of highlight any other issues that need to be tackled and perhaps solutions?
I'm really interested in what you were saying about youth work, because I was thinking, who gets to go, who goes clubbing, who goes out at night? And it's usually, I started going out when I was like 16. As soon as I looked old enough. Wow, exactly. As soon as I looked old enough. And so maybe there's some work to be done, as you're saying, with youth workers, with the actual youth as well, on behaviour with each other. It seems like there's a sea change culturally, like we all, as a society, need to look at the behaviours that serve us as human beings and those that don't. And so whatever's happening needs to happen kind of across the board. So I'm really interested in what you're saying about that and working with young people to educate them on how one wants to be treated, whoever that is. What else do I think is important? My brain has drawn a blank.
That's all right. Ola, will you?
Yeah, regarding security, I really like what you're saying about the youth workers, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with PHAT, and the idea is myself and K-Rush to come up with a team of people. Like, we wanted to be security because we feel we want to help people on nights out, and we end up doing that anyway. The only thing that we're not allowed to do is we just need to do the training to actually be allowed to fully, properly deal with this situation from start to finish. So I think there's definitely an interest in people who, especially in like youth, who want to help out and want to be involved, and like we're literally recruiting. So if anyone's interested in either being just a guardian, which takes a bit of the pressure off security, like what security does, or if you really want to get nitty-gritty and do security, like we want to encourage as many people to do that as possible. And it's actually, if you're on universal credit, you can get the training for free. So there's, it's open to everyone, but that is, I think, is a good thing to know. And I wanted to mention, I think what you were saying about just, I think, polarization, I guess. We're saying about problems in nighttime economy in general. I think there is such a big rise of cancel culture and polarization, especially after lockdown, especially with like these queer communities coming out and these little individual projects. I feel because people want to be so protective over their space and their safety, a lot of the times, even without the intention of it being so, it ends up excluding and ends up polarizing people and cancelling people. Especially if you think about sexual assault, for example, that I'm sure there's, in the queer community itself, there's people who are the victims and the perpetrators, and it's about creating a community where there's some kind of communication around that and some kind of some steps to take to re-include people back in the community and don't feel like they've been excluded because they've done something wrong, or to explain to them what they've done wrong. So we've thought of doing consent workshops, and we're kind of going to look at some people who would be up for leading these, but we want to open it, especially actually not to the queer community, but to people in general. I've got a lot of cis-het male friends at work and in life in general, and if you even ask them, like, would you ask to kiss someone? they'll say yes because they feel the pressure that you have to say yes. But I'm like, would you ask? Would you? And I think having these workshops where people could relearn consent, relearn what yes means, what no means, and practice it, and practice how to flirt, practice how to interact with people, and what our boundaries are, like learning about boundaries again. I think that would be really nice to, not just for workers, but for people in general. I think that would improve nightlife a lot, not just nightlife, but just interactions with people. Yeah, life, yeah.
That's such a good point, because I feel like, I mean, since I started going out, so much has changed, and so much for the better. There's behaviour that you would not have questioned even a few years ago that now would just be unacceptable. But I suppose that has to come with some kind of like dialogue and understanding that people don't always get it right, and education, I suppose. How would that what's the ideal approach? Because I think there's a lot of positives in the change that's happening, but is there a risk that people now are coming to Bristol for the first time, or able to go out for the first time? They've had, 2 years of lockdowns, and suddenly it seems like a very scary place. Like, where do we go from here, and what's the best approach now? I don't know who wants to take that.
I was just going to say, that idea of stewarding, like, when you go to Carnival, there's stewards, and they're in a T-shirt, and you know that person knows everything there is to know about whatever it is. And I think that's a really great idea, is to encourage, I think I've been hanging around clubs for many years, and I've done door work, bar work, all of it, and I find myself being that person. I've been known to walk behind people who are going to a club through Brixton, because I know that they're going to get their heads kicked in. So I'll just walk behind them and get them to the fridge, and then they don't even know I'm there. It's just the kind of thing that we do. And I think, when, if those of us who like to be out at night and in that society do that, a lot of us do that. And I think it would be good to find more people, it sounds a bit like formalizing it, because some of us naturally just do it, but I think it's a good idea to kind of raise that culture. When a group of young people go out, they all go out together, and it's just like kind of looking out for each other. So I think those conversations just need to happen more and more in every sphere.
I don't want to make stereotypes either, but is that where having women, non-binary people in those kind of leadership roles is key to kind of lead on that kind of work? It is something that I feel perhaps naturally happens a bit more with people who maybe are more aware of the dangers themselves and would look out for other people. I mean, it comes back to my question of, are we championing women and non-binary people enough and the work that they do in Bristol?
Can I
yeah,
say
please
else?
do.
Sorry, my brain does this sort of spurty thing where it throws things. Business advice. I run a business as a carpenter many years ago, and then I started my little club Snatch in London. I didn't know what I was doing, apart from the fact that I'd experienced going out, and I knew various aspects. Business support for any new collectives who are starting up, to kind of, Booty Base, we're formalising ourselves. What kind of bank account should we open? What kind, seriously, how much research have I spent trying to find out what's a CIC, what's a this, what's a that? And there are people who know this information who could just be freely sharing it, and that would grow the whole city enormously. So that's something I'd say could improve.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, just VOSCA. I think VOSCA are quite good with helping to incorporate businesses and things like that, and with that early support.
Okay. But it would be good to have that from, I don't know, the person who manages Lakota, because they know. Or whatever, Yeah. More kind of
Literally what you've said, I started a business in lockdown. I don't know what I'm doing. And I work at Cloak & Dagger now, and Jenna, who's my boss, is amazing. And Cloak & Dagger's a CIC. So I've, through working in a venue, I've learned a little bit more about running a grassroots business. But if I wasn't in that job, I still don't know what I'm doing a lot of the times, especially with accounts, taxes, registering companies, all of this stuff. No one really teaches you this in school, and no one really tells you to go into events at school anyway. So it's something that I think early on collectives definitely need help with, including myself. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Such a good point as well, because the nighttime economy in Bristol, everything that makes up the nighttime economy, and that includes, bars, restaurants, venues, clubs, taxis, all that kind of thing. But they account for about, I think, at least 33% of the jobs in Bristol. And yet it doesn't feel like that investment has been there. Laura?
Well, I was going to just give my company a bit of a promotion. Promote? I'll just promote it, sorry. So, because I think that there's the education that comes before even, you know, people getting into the nighttime economy. Like, what we do at Saffron is we do music tech education. So if anyone knows, the music tech industry is made up of 5% women, 2.6% of those are producers, less than 1% of those are women of colour. So it's an industry that really needs that change. And actually, you know, even before people are getting to, you know, promoting those nights and putting those nights on, they need to have diverse people that can be in that space. So what we're doing is giving those skills to people before they are getting into the nighttime economy. So, you know, did you do mixed nights? No, just the production. But I think our aim is really to change what that night looks like, so what that space looks like, and when you're in a place where it feels inclusive and that, you know, that you belong there, that's what everyone wants, that's what everyone needs, and yeah, that's our hope, is to change the space before it kind of gets to the nighttime.
And do you find that the people that are already in that space, are people willing to change enough to make a difference? Because women make up some very tiny percentage of the music tech industry, don't they?
Yeah, very much so. And I think that there definitely are people that are there for the change. There's definitely people that aren't there for the change, because I think that the people that aren't there for the change are the ones that are really scared about what that new workforce are going to bring to them, and that level of competition is not what they want, and that's what they fear. So I think there definitely are people that are fearful of it, but there's people that also don't need that sort of cancel culture. They need that support and they need that education themselves in terms of how they can make that space an inclusive space.
Thank you. Just at this point, does anybody want to ask any questions? No one in the room? No, that's absolutely fine. I just thought I don't want to keep us going on and on and on until 8 o'clock, and then there's a whole heap of questions. But do feel free to just wave and ask if anyone's got any questions. So one thing I wanted to come back to was this concept that the nighttime economy is kind of just rebuilding now in the wake of the pandemic, which has had such a devastating impact. And it does feel like there's quite a lot of talk about kind of the rise in drink spiking, all that sort of thing, which it's good to raise awareness of. But what would you, each of you panellists, say to someone who is worried about going out in Bristol and doesn't feel like, you know, all places are for them? Shall I start, Aysha, if I can start with you?
I'd say really simply, being worried to go out is very valid. I think there's a fair amount to worry about, especially as a woman or a non-binary person or a person of colour. There's a lot to consider when you're going out, more than just like how much the ticket is or like what you're going to drink or anything. There's so many layers to even deciding to step out of your door in the first place. But I think what's worth remembering is that Bristol is, like, there's these things in place like this training, industry-wide training, and people like Ola and everyone here who are like trying to affect change, to make Bristol safer, to make the places that people are going to safer. And no, like, there's no winning at this. Nowhere's going to ever be 100% safe. There's no like end point. It's just about, like, we're trying to be safer. We're trying to do what we can. We're trying to implement as many things as we can to kind of mitigate risks, and kind of create spaces where if something does happen, people know how to handle it. People know, and people are approachable, and they know how to report it, and all of these things, and kind of hopefully that gives people like a tiny bit of confidence in that where they're going is safer and is doing all it can to kind of grow and develop and continuously improve, because it's a journey. It's never it's a journey without an end point. But yeah, it's perfectly valid to be worried. I worry about going out every time I leave my house. So yeah, it's perfectly valid, but yeah, but there's improvements happening, there's big changes happening, particularly now. So I think, yeah, just remembering that.
Is that why a citywide approach that kind of involves everyone is so key?
Yeah, for sure. When you've got individual, whether it's a venue or whether it's like a pub, whatever it might be, anywhere that's open kind of in the nighttime, if it's an individual space, you familiarise yourself, you get comfortable in a space, and that's great. It's really good that you can feel comfortable somewhere. But then it's knowing that you can go somewhere else and there is that same standard, there's that same level of like protection, there's that same understanding of what sexual harassment is, or like any form of harassment is, and how they're going to approach it, and kind of knowing that you're going to be treated in the same way, and that, you know, with further security training, like you're going to be met in the same way when you approach the doors. So like I was talking to one of our duty managers the other day, and he was saying how important it is to be at the front when people are coming in. As soon as doors open, people need to know your face, because if something happens, you're who they need to find. And like, yeah, they can go to any member of staff, they can go to a technician, but if they know your face as the person who's walking around and can handle any situation as it arises, that's so key. And like having your security being approachable as soon as people walk in the door, before they walk in the door, is so key to creating that safer atmosphere. And you're also setting a tone for how people need to behave once they've walked through those doors.
Such a good point, thank you. Emma, just interested in what everyone would want to say to someone who is worried about going out.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I'm a bit of a gobshite. I'm a bit like, you know, imagine Janet Street Porter and Russell Brand had a child, and that child was educated by a Smurf. But so basically, you know, I'm probably not, you know...
The imagery is amazing.
I'm probably like the 3% of women who's never been sexually harassed, so, you know, that's got to get, you know, I've got to get some sort of certificate for that, I feel. But you know, I think, in all honesty, I think, you know, it gets back to... Yeah, what are the standards of like behaviour that we're saying is acceptable, as not just as a venue but as society? Society, how do we want to behave, and what are the venues that then help to enforce that, and the people behind those venues, or the nights that help to build that culture and create that safety so that people can have that confidence? So like Aysha said, you know, you should be, you know, rightly, you know, thinking about before you go out, you know, what's my exit strategy? How am I going to, you know, how am I going to get home? How, you know, who am I going out with? What's my plan if I lose my mates? You know, what is the venue that I'm going to? You know, do I know what the, you know, what that venue's like? Have I read reviews of it? You know, so I kind of think there is a little bit of kind of like self-care you've got to kind of like exercise when you're going out. And I think we do, you know, particularly if you're younger and you've moved to the city and you've had a couple of years of lockdown, you know, it can feel really scary. And with all these kind of stories about drink spiking and all of those things, I think it can create this heightened sense of risk that perhaps then will, you know, might prevent you from going out and having some really amazing nights and experiencing some brilliant things. Like you know, I went to Peachin the other night at Trinity, and it was literally, I didn't stop dancing the whole night. It was so good, and the atmosphere was amazing, and just the whole feeling of that night is just what I want to feel when I'm on a night out. And there are amazing venues, like this venue's brilliant. There's like, you know, Strange Brew, and there's like, you know, loads of different places that are kind of popping up that are doing really great, interesting things, you know, to kind of cater for different audiences and to say, look, you know, this is the type of city we want to be. And I kind of think it's a little bit like food, right? You know, environmental health's there to say this restaurant's like 1 star or this restaurant's 5 star. And if you're a 1 star, it's not that you get proper binned off, but you get an environmental health person coming in saying, you haven't met this standard and you've got like 6 months to sort it out or whatever. And I feel like with, you know, why is that not consistent with behaviour and culture within a venue and a space? So a venue could have a 5-star review or a 4-star review. If it's getting a 1 or a 2 star, someone's going in, you know, what's the culture, what's going wrong, and how can we do something about that? And again, moving people into a space of how can we do better rather than like, shit, we need to cover this up because otherwise we're going to lose customers. Because that is what leads to the perpetual behaviour of like, you know, good people will leave and the only people that will stick around will be the people that behave badly. Yeah.
That sounds like could be brought in straight away. That's an amazing idea.
And then speed school for like naughty people. You know, you send them to like behaviours speed school, and they get taught by us 5, and basically, hot housed until they behave themselves.
That's the punishment.
Can I be that bitch? I want that job. I'll train them up. Wanting to go out again, yeah.
No, carry on, please. This is an amazing tangent. No, Linda, what would you say to someone who's worried beyond what we've already spoken about? Which is
I think, Aysha and Emma have hit quite a lot of it. You plan your night out. Like even now at my great old age, I plan what I'm doing. I know how I'm going home. I know when, I kind of set how much I want to drink. I mostly win nowadays on that one. That kind of thing. And work out, my routes. I tend to like to go alone nowadays because then I know I'm alone. I'll see people there, but that's fine. I know I'm on my own. That kind of thing. Go with your mates if you can. Have a plan. Have a plan of what you're doing. And then if it goes wrong, at least you had started with something to work from. Yeah,
set those goals. Ola.
It's like, I think what everyone has said is amazing, but I would like to know if guys or males have to go and plan out their nights from start to finish like this.
This is going to be one of my questions.
And I'm not here to generalize, because I'm sure that guys also have bad nights as well, and stuff happens too. But we just should not be having to plan our nights out at all. So be scared, be scared. But I want to kind of approach it from a different side and say to people that are going out, not who are necessarily worried, but are going out in general, is if you see something's going on, interact, stand up for your mates, stand up for girls. If you see someone's getting touched up, like even grabbing their waist, go and chat to the person. And I really, really would just encourage communication and conversation, because a lot of the times someone thinks it's just a hand on a waist or whatever. They probably don't think it's bad until you sit them down and tell them how it makes you feel. It's like actually having a really clear line of communication will probably make them be like, oh, okay, I'm a bit embarrassed now. And just communicate and tell other people how it makes you feel, make them see you as human. And another thing that I think would be really nice to do as a city, it's something that I'm keen to look into, kind of based on, there's a night on in London called Pussy Palace, which is, I've never been, but it's, is it for taxis? Is that what you're... Yeah, so I was going to say, I think with the amount of queer collectives in Bristol now, and women and non-binary people in music and in nightlife, I think it's time for Bristol to do something like, all the collectives who are involved sign this. There's a pot that you can donate to at those nights. Venues can donate to that pot, and that money is used to get people home safe. So paying off all the taxis. It's something we're starting from today with our guardians as well. If anyone needs a taxi home, we'll just fund it. But obviously, I'm broke. I can't fund your taxi. It's I wish I could. I can't even fund my own. So it would be nice to have a pot for people to kind of support each other through that. Just checking in with people. I think another really good thing is when you do, when people are oh, let me know when you get home. Make sure you know how long it takes that person to get home and actually check in after that time. Set an alarm on your phone for 15, 20 minutes and be I'm going to check in. Because the more people start to do that and that becomes a habit, it'll be harder to actually assault anyone, because we're just going to be on it 24/7 watching out for people. And it's sad that it's gotten to this, but I think that's the right way moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
Martial arts. People you have to defend yourself. I'm serious. Know what to do to F someone up.
Can we do a workshop, please?
That needs to be free compulsory training then.
Can I just add on to just real quick? I fully forgot what I was going to say. What Ola was saying about intervening, that's such a key part of the anti-sexual harassment training that was rolled out. And I think it's great that people working in nighttime economy have had that training, but I think what would be even better is if that's rolled out just as the same with the spiking campaign or anti-spiking campaign. In the same way, list those behaviours. It's great having posters saying if it's unwanted, it's not okay, and all of this. But what's really shocking I found when delivering the training was seeing this mammoth list of behaviours that are sexual harassment. And I think making that, just like displaying that, just putting that all over the city, then people are gonna know what to call out. They're gonna see something and they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, I saw that on this list and I know that's not okay. And also rolling out, making it really accessible for people to know how to safely intervene. Because I think that's such like a fear that people have, so that the whole bystander effect, if you're in a crowd, people are less likely to intervene. But knowing how to do that safely and put yourself in that position and feeling empowered to do that is it's such a strength, and it's so beneficial to not only to yourself to feel able to do that, but to anyone involved in that situation as a witness to it, not necessarily as staff, to be able to call it out and do so in a strong position and knowing that what you're doing is right and that you're safe doing it and you're not going to escalate the problem while doing so.
Thanks, Aysha.
I'm not
come to
sorry.
you now.
I'm never sorry. No, just the thing on the list, a lot of people don't know how to behave. That's why I was suggesting maybe working with young people who may have missed some social cues on what's acceptable and what's not, and so personal space, is that those lists are amazing. I was at a meeting at a Loco Club where several different organisations came together and started the thinking around all of the whole harassment thing, and it was really great. Most people want to support it, and I think it's just education is key, isn't it? And starting the conversation, as you say, communication is so important. Yeah.
Thank you.
So mine is more about supporting those smaller initiatives, because I think that they're so key in the change. And like you said, if you haven't got funding or access to funding or business support, actually the community is there to support you. And if you're, going out on a night and you are feeling a level of anxiety around that, then go to somewhere where you know that it's inclusive, because then, one, you're investing in that initiative, but also you're getting that initiative on another platform. So when, Emma, you were talking about how do they get from a 150 cap venue to 300, then that will support them to elevate themselves and to get onto that platform as well. So I think it's about investment of the grassroots initiatives.
Really good point, thank you. I'm going to come back to what Ola touched upon a little bit, because I think everything we've spoken about is education, training, understanding, planning, looking after people. And I wrote an article this week that mentioned some of the work being done to tackle crimes against women, and someone commented on it and said, you're talking about crimes against women, but you're not talking about the perpetrator, and essentially men who are committing, largely, not always, I suppose. I think education, everything is key, but should we also be taking more of an enforcement approach? Should we be involving the police, venues, in that kind of thing? And Emma, if I go to you first, as someone who runs a venue.
No pressure. How do you solve sexual harassment? Go. All
the small topics.
I mean, basically, I think one, I don't want to start dragging men, because I live with one of them, and he's all right sometimes. But I think it is important to think about behaviours that are not acceptable, rather than thinking about a type of offender or a type of person who commits assault or makes your night shitty or behaves in a way that they shouldn't. And I think, for me, it's particularly important around trans and non-binary people as well, and the spaces that we share and occupy together. And incidents can occur in, women's bathrooms with, assaulting trans people. So I don't believe that it's right to focus too much on men, but I do understand the reasoning why that is, because we're talking about predominant sexual assault conducted by a predominant group that's largely cis men, and I guess what I would say about that is that there's got to be a bit of a stick approach, sure, this behaviour is not acceptable, and that thing getting followed up, but the reality is that, it's very difficult to prosecute a he said, she said kind of scenario, and that happens when women are sexually assaulted and raped to the point where they do want to pursue that. And actually sometimes as well in that situation, particularly in a venue setting, somebody may not want that thing to be escalated. They may not want it to be pursued. So I think from my perspective as someone running a venue is it's about having what I would call a kind of person-led response. So whoever's reporting that incident to me or to one of my members of staff, it's about being led by what that person wants and to take that person into a space where they feel safe, to move them into a space where you can have a conversation with them to say, how would you like us to respond to this? Obviously, removal from the venue is the primary response that we would go to, but if it is a serious assault that person would like to pursue, then we can do that beyond that night if that person wants to come back to us. So creating that mechanism for that communication to happen beyond that night where that person may be in shock and they may not be able to decide on that spot what they want to do. And it's not for us to be like, right, well, we're going to get the police here and we're going to, that completely removes the control from that person who's had that experience, and that is not the right approach. So what you need to do is just create that mechanism of them being able to be supported, for them to know that you will support them in that process, for them to be able to come back to you as the venue, for you to check in on them after that incident, say, how would you like us to follow that up? And, for me, that's kind of how we approached it. So a big night that we had a real incident with was a night called Thorny, that we had a brilliant night on. There was amazing arts performances, and from the artist perspective, from 90% of the audience, everyone was having a great time. But there was some incidents that occurred, multiple incidents of sexual harassment, of security behaving inappropriately. We had a couple of, door fillers on the night that, it was a Pride weekend, so there was, so much going on, and there was security spread really thinly. So the night was absolute disaster from my perspective in terms of, exactly the night that I wouldn't want to happen. There was this amazing thing happening and this beautiful experience, and loads of people had a great time. And then a few people just had the worst experience possible that they could have on a night out. And so for me, it was about saying, one, making a really clear statement, that is not acceptable, and we will publicly say that this behaviour is not acceptable in our venue, and it's not acceptable anywhere, and we don't expect to see it. And then two, just making sure that we continue that communication with the people who were affected by that, so that we were able to create a response that was relevant to those people. So, yeah, like I said, yes, you could call the police for something, but unless that's what is going to enable that person to feel safe going forward, then I just don't feel that is the right approach, personally.
Thanks, Emma. Does anyone else want to?
Yeah. I think it's tricky when it comes to police, and I think the majority of the people that I would interact with in that occasion definitely would not trust the police to deal with that situation. I think it's a privilege to trust them in those situations. So it's hard to know what to do when that happens, but I think the main thing that is good to focus on, like I said, I kind of touched on it before, is what you were saying about it's not the person, it's the situation. And with anti-sexual harassment training and all of this, I understand that a lot of it, that it's men assaulting women, and it's majority men, but a lot of the men aren't, and a lot of the men want to learn. And if they go to training and immediately they associate with a perpetrator because that's the man, we need to create a space where, at the same time as we're looking after people that are being mistreated and are giving them care, the people that are capable should be focusing on, teaching and unlearning and relearning, and focusing on basically don't make all men out to be horrible. It's not all men. It's not all, men aren't horrible, and men want to learn and want to be there. And actually, if they're your mate and they're pretty strong, they can stand up for you if you tell them what to do, instead of, if they're taught right, if they've gone to these trainings, consent workshops, anti-sexual harassment workshops, and are there as an ally for you, instead of feeling like they're being attacked straight away because they've gone in, that I think will help us quite a lot in general. So yeah, it's just kind of seeing it as a people problem, not as a man-woman problem.
Really good point. Yeah, it's for everyone to solve, I guess. Does anyone else want to talk on this particular topic? That's fine. No. Go.
It's something about language I think is really important. So I saw a post about some awful demented people who are coming to come and celebrate Colston's birthday or something. And then there's an yeah, I know, right? I know. But then there's an anti-hate march. And whenever I see any anti-anything, it just makes me go, ugh. I don't like polarisation. Again, it's still the point of the behaviour is the thing we want to change. We're not trying to diss anybody. Like, so I'm really interested in doing things that say what you want rather than what you don't want. Because I think there's a subtle shift in people's brains. If you encourage people to be kind, they generally are kind. If you go, stop being mean to me, what your brain hears is mean, not be nice. So if we want people to be kind, maybe that's something we need to think about in our language when we're making any kind of posters or posts or anything.
Really good point, thank you.
I'm really here for that, because that's one of the things I really struggle with the anti-harassment campaign in the first instance, because it was placed in language of zero tolerance, and for me that was really problematic language, because what that does, if you're inducting a security guard on the first night and saying we have a zero tolerance approach, then literally what they're going to hear is, right, zero tolerance, must throw someone out, and you're you're placing people into that aggressor space rather than saying exactly what Linda's saying. What we're talking about is reinforcing the good behaviour and trying to level people up to that consistent behaviour of like, this is how we should all treat one another, basically. So yeah, all for that.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a question that's come in from online, from Claire. So I think probably Aysha, you'd be perhaps the first person to take this initially, because what's been the uptake to the training that's provided across the city? And the panel are all getting behind it, but are the venues getting on board?
I would say, so I can only speak for the sessions that I was facilitating, and so they were 25 people max was like the maximum sign up, and I think the ones I had, the most I had was about 20. What's slightly disappointing, there was a lot of dropout. From what I noticed was less individual people and more if like 3 people from one organisation had signed up, none of those 3 people were there. So I think like the uptake, the initial interest, I think was really great. I think the people who were there, as I said before, were like fully engaged in it. I think possibly with it having only been available in person for a short run, and it's a really busy time of year for the light industry, particularly the music industry, live music industry. So I think that's had something to do with it. It's not necessarily people being like, oh, I'll sign up to say that I signed up and then just not go. I think it's people just not.
Is that a problem with, because this is government money that's paid for some of this training, isn't it? Is that a problem with the way that government money is handed out? It's for specific short periods of time that doesn't necessarily address...
Yeah, the fact that you have to spend it by a certain date. You
Right.
have to have everything delivered by a certain date, and then you're not... Do you want to...
I was going to say, I'm chomping at the bit now. It's proper Brewster's Million style money when it comes to sexual harassment, anti-sexual harassment, stuff like this. Women have some money, quick, spend it before the end of March. But I do think that there is a point about COVID is really rife still at the moment, so there is going to be a drop of people just not coming because of COVID. It's so busy at the moment for gigs because loads of venues are backed up with, it's like, everything that's 2 years worth of gigs are all, so people are absolutely exhausted. So this training is, like I said, this is a starting point, and I think you are going to get a good catchment of people who really put this at the heart of what they do, and that's going to be your first wave of people. And then it's what's next. How do you get the wider catchment? How do you get those wider venues? And other people who are helping to facilitate nightlife, how are you going to get cab drivers in? How are you going to get pizza people in, and like kebab owners in, and kebab shop owners in, and all sorts of people? You need lots of different people into these spaces to say, and like bystander training, this idea about bystander training and how do we, if you're not prepping for your night out, you should be prepping about how am I going to what am I going to do if I see something happening? That should be your prep. How are you prepping, and then, and again, then your third layer is then that enforcement layer and saying, it's not about enforcement in terms of police going in, breaking up a night and causing a big ding-dong, but actually if you've got consistent bad behaviour being reported from that venue, what is the kind of almost environmental health aspect approach that a local authority is going to take to go to a venue and say, you've got a licence with us, this isn't acceptable. It's not about coming in and trying to shut you down, but we want to see you put X, Y and Z in place over the next 6 months. That includes you going and training your staff, going to ninja school and, telling you off and all that, and
Comes back to having that standards, like,
Yeah,
the food
standards,
standards.
yeah,
I think that's a great idea. I've realised it's about 5 to 8. Does anyone want to ask any questions? There's no pressure, but this is the time to do so if anyone does. Silence so far. Well, thanks, Claire, for sending one online on the live stream. One thing I did want to touch on quite quickly before we finish is we've talked a lot about the kind of music and going out scene and kind of dedicated spaces. But part of the nighttime economy, and a huge part, is restaurants, food businesses, that kind of thing. And the former head of Bristol Food Union wrote quite a strongly worded piece that talked about the patriarchy that exists within restaurants and the food businesses, and that culture that means it's very hard for many people within those industries to kind of to progress and see positive change. I guess, like you said, Oliver, like many of us have worked in hospitality. Is this a big problem to try and get past that kind of the culture of the people that are leading these businesses? Again, so Laura, do I start with you on that?
Well, I guess for me, because I'm not exactly in the nighttime economy, I'm more in the music tech industry, and as a mixed race woman, trying to make the change within that space, and how it's held very much by white men. That's what the industry, that's what the music tech industry is. So it feels, like there's a big, it just, for me, I'm just like, we just need to offer something different. Like, I can't be bothered to get into your industry. I can't be bothered to infiltrate that. Like, we can do that slowly, but I think that there's something that just needs to happen where there's a completely different offer for everyone. And again, what I think I was saying about that, the fear of, some of those gatekeepers and them seeing a different workforce coming in, those different people that are coming into that space. I think that's kind of what we need to make them see, so that then there can be that change, so that they have enough fear, so that then they want to support change. And that's why we need to think about all of those grassroots organisations that are within that space and how they can get that investment to make the change.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add something onto that. I don't fully know if this answers your question, but I found in hospitality, especially the divide between front of house and back of house is ridiculous. And I've worked in multiple restaurants where the waitresses are fairly like young girls, it's usually whilst you're at uni, whilst you're starting out, and the way that we've been treated by some of the chefs is gross, and it's horrible. And if I was still in the hospitality industry, I'd probably be sat here talking about that instead. And I think that's really, really hot. Like you say, something needs to happen. Some kind of retraining again, kind of bringing that to light. Making people, it's just like safety in the workplace. Like, it's not safe for people in the workplace in hospitality at all. I don't think in those situations. I was going to say something else, but I forgot what, so
I guess that kind of comes back to Laura's point about HR and actually having proper policies. But Linda?
It's so weird, isn't it? That when I always found it really odd when you go to a restaurant and you see people being rude to the waiter, and you're like, are you stupid? That person's bringing your food. You need to be super nice to them. Like, I don't, anyway, that's to the side. I think across all areas, HR is a massive issue. And also, people do feel threatened when there's another offer. But like you say, Lauren, I think people just we have to do what we want to see. We have to create it. If it's not in existence, then those of us who feel passionately about it enough need to start it and then make noise. Like I said, Bristol has changed enormously in the 10 years that I've been here. Just with the film industry as well, lots of films were made by white cis men, and more and more voices are coming through, and then it enriches everybody's experience. It's about somehow getting the people who feel threatened with the change and with the fact that the world is opening up and it's not just their song that's being sung anymore, that it actually enriches everybody. So some sort of dialogue needs to keep happening.
Can I wanted to go on your vibe, Linda, and try and think about an industry that we think is positive and that has a good system in place, and if we can look at how to find that model. I don't know the answer to that, but if there was any that anybody out there that anybody knew of. Anything going well? No?
It's quite shocking that no one can think of anything.
No industry? That's all right.
I just wanted to add on to what Ola and Linda were saying, and I think it comes back to diversifying at the top level. When you've got like restaurants and whatever it may be run by cis white men, they're not going to see the problems, they're not going to act on them in the same kind of way. Like when I worked in hospitality, I experienced sexual harassment all the time. I eventually stopped serving this customer, and my manager told me, like, his response to that was, don't do that. When I decided to stop serving this person, obviously eventually left and stopped working there. But if you've got a diverse management and people at the top who understand experiences and understand the impact that they have, these like long-lasting general impacts that they have, then you're going to have a better response to them. You're going to have better policies and procedures in place to prevent these things happening in the first place. So yeah, I think diversifying from the top is like really key to kind of affecting change.
Yeah, brilliant.
Sorry,
point.
I just remembered something. Can I?
Go.
Sorry, this is so bad. Oh, is it? Bye.
Sorry, not sorry.
No, I just wanted to mention actually specifically the queer community in workplaces, and something as basic as pronouns. I'm quite lucky in where I work at Cloak and Dagger that even though it's not something that I think was spoken about before in the workplace, people do seem to respect that quite a lot, and the team I work with are also in drag and events, so it's like we all understand that, but I don't know if this is the same thing in other workplaces, and I know for sure it's not, where pronouns don't get respected, and that is super damaging for the queer and trans community, and I think that's something that really needs to introduce yourself with pronouns, especially for people that are managers of venues. Like, take an evening to read up about pronouns and what everything means and how people want to be addressed and why, and that you should probably do that and respect that. Yeah.
Is that about normalising it for everybody to be specifying and saying, rather than it sort of being down to people who are maybe members of the trans community who then have to make a thing, make the point. If we all just say it blanket, then that's there for everybody. Very inconcisely put point to just round up what you already said. I know that we're pretty close to running out of time now, so I'm going to give everyone last chance to speak. But one thing I'd really love to, this is about celebrating the women and non-binary people who are making a huge difference in Bristol's nighttime economy. So I would love to hear from everyone about like what your favourite thing is, or favourite person, favourite venue. Like, what's the best thing about Bristol and going out in Bristol? And feel free to add on any extra comments that you want to get out.
I'll go quick because I don't go out that much anymore. So I think it's what you said earlier, Ola, but it's about the acceptance of Bristol, and actually there are so many different ways in which you can live and experience the nightlife in Bristol.
Well, I'm going to plug my own nights, aren't I? But we run an open mic at Cloak and Dagger every Wednesday, which is just the most beautiful vibe. You don't have to drink if you don't want to. I think some people are usually quite wavy by the end, but it's a really, really accepting space. And then we run Crotch on Thursdays, which is a queer femme club night. Anyone is welcome, though. And that's what we're running tonight. So later on tonight, I know you're about to, yeah, so later on tonight, as soon as we finish, we usually run it at the Landogger, but it's now happening here just for today, kind of just to add on to this celebration. And tonight we're raising money for the queer security company, but we're there every week at Landogger, so please come find us. And there's so many incredible collectives in Bristol. There's amazing events happening at Strangebury quite a lot. I think Strangebury is a really great venue that are getting it right a lot. There's Miskatech, who do events here, which is a lesbian and non-binary night. I'm trying to think of Conqueer as well. That was a night on Thursday. That happened last Saturday. That's another queer night. There's so many of them. They're all over the place. I feel like someone's going to grill me now. I haven't mentioned something. What haven't I mentioned? Oh my God. Huh? Oh my God, yeah, Queen Shilling. Queen Shilling is amazing. We're starting House of Savlon are an incredible organisation. We're doing a little collaboration with them on Wednesday. So there's so many beautiful places to go to in Bristol. You really take your pick and make sure you do actually feel good there. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
I'd have to agree with that on the diversity of stuff that's going on. There's loads. When I got here, there was only the Queen Shilling and the Hatchet and the Pineapple, which shut down about a week after I got here. So I was like, and so yeah, now it's a vastly different landscape. You know, Booty Bass, of course, we rock, and we'll turn up and play wherever you want us. My favourite venue as well is Strange Brew of the moment, because it's just, yeah.
And Lost Horizons, sorry.
And Lost Horizons.
Well added.
Whoa. Yeah, and I was going to say also Lost Horizons, because, again, in terms of space and venue and really well thought out, how it's laid out, staff, etc. So yeah, there's loads happening. I think it's a really positive picture for the city. There's lots of good stuff. Trinity?
I mean, you know, what can I say? Yeah, I mean, you know, I love a bit of booty bass. What can I say? And probably one of my favourite nights in between the lockdowns was like seated booty bass, where I was like, how can I sort of like keep one bum cheek on the seat and still? It was just literally, but it was the most beautiful evening. Everyone was just having the best time, and that's what I want to see when I go out. Is I want to see people have a good time. So, like, you know, that's what I would say as well. It's like, vote with your money, vote with your feet, go and support, as these guys are saying, you know, support the nights that you want to see. Oh, shit, I kicked my drink over. And on that bombshell.
You didn't smash the glass. That was
No smashing. Yeah, I would just agree with what everyone's been saying. I think the diversity of what's available is, like, incredible. I think, especially compared to like surrounding cities, there is something for everyone. It might take a bit of digging, but there is something for everyone. I mean, like, I don't go out that much. If I do, it tends to be like to gigs and things, like kind of go in, get out. But yeah, there's just the diversity of everything that's going on in the city, not just music, like whatever it may be. There is something for everyone, and I think that's what kind of makes Bristol a bit special.
Brilliant, thank you. I was going to finish that, but I've got one final tiny question of just what one thing would you change? Like, what if you could like see something change in the next year? What would that be relating to like nighttime economy? I mean, I don't know if you want to start, Aysha.
No.
All right.
One thing, what would I change? Gosh, I think just I think a way to help people get home safer. I think that is the something that enables people to be able to reach out if they've got a bit of a problem, if they they maybe got a little bit squiffy and they just need to get home. I think that is a good kind of starting point for me. Maybe next step after the training that we've had.
Yeah, I'd go with that. The first time I ever encountered that was I went to a Thorny night, and it said, there was a fund available if anyone needed help getting home. I think that's really revolutionary. I hadn't seen it anywhere else, so that's great. And oh God, my brain's just
your martial arts.
It's abandoned
martial
me
arts for all.
No, my brain's abandoned me again. I don't know. I can't remember what it was I was going to say. ADHD's a bitch.
I forgot now as well. As soon as you said you forgot one, if you want.
Well, I just love your idea of the security. Like, I just think that there's so much change that's needed in that space. Like, it's a lot of toxic masculinity, and I think it could make a real change to the nightlife in Bristol. Well, everywhere.
Thank you.
The Queer Security Company, I really hope that having faces that people can relate to, queer femme, that people can relate to, will really help stuff. But I would also love if people spoke about consent more freely, not just queers and minorities, but people were not embarrassed to speak and ask questions and check in regarding any kind of sexual behaviour or any kind of physical contact. So,
brilliant.
Oh, I've got two, but they're really quick. So one is diversifying each sector within the industry, whether it's management or production or security. And then the other is providing mental health resources. So when someone's experienced something, you're not just sending them home, kind of like what Emma was saying about following up on that, but then also giving them the resources to help themselves after that and get professional help to work through the like psychological impacts of what they've experienced or what they might have witnessed.
Really good point. Thank you so much, everyone. Right, I think we probably better leave it there. So thanks, everyone, for coming. Thank you for everyone watching online. And thank you to all of our panellists, Laura, Ola, Linda, Emma, and Aysha. Thank you so much. And on the thanks, oh, sorry, I don't want to cut that short, actually. Thanks,
That's enough.
Thanks to Lost Horizons for hosting us here, and thank you to Bristol Nights for partnering with us on this event, and sorry, Carly, that you weren't able to be here in the end. But yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you all. And one thing I need to mention is that none of this would be possible without our Bristol 24/7 supporter members. So they're really key to everything that we do as an organisation, whether that's the journalism, social impact, or hosting events like this. So if anyone's interested in becoming a member, all the details are on the Bristol 24/7 website, links at every bottom of every article. I think that's all I needed to say, but thank you to all of you, and thanks for coming.